Okay, so today we're going to Paris. We're going
Yeah.
to be looking at the trial of Gérard Depardieu.
Huge French icon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It started just a couple days ago on March 24th, 2025.
Big day.
And we've got some news articles that are covering the very first day of
The
this.
very first day. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a high profile case and it's got a lot of people interested.
Absolutely. And I think it really speaks to a lot of things that are going on culturally,
Right.
especially in the French film industry,
Yeah.
particularly in the wake of the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of this.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be taking apart kind of the charges themselves,
Yes.
and the whole context surrounding the trial.
Yeah. What's the background to this?
Exactly. And really, like, what happened in those initial hours
Yeah. In the courtroom.
in the courtroom on that first day?
Yeah. Like, how did this all start to unfold?
Right. So let's get right to it. What are the charges?
So 2 women have come forward with allegations,
Okay.
and this all stems back to 2021.
Okay.
During the filming of this movie, Le Volet Vert,
Le volet vert.
which translates to
What is that? The green shutters.
the green shutters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the women is a 54-year-old set dresser,
Okay.
and she's alleging that he groped her.
Okay.
And then the second woman is
Yeah.
a 34-year-old assistant director, and she's making similar accusations of groping.
So you've got these two women
Yeah.
kind of in similar roles, in terms of their position on a film set.
In the film industry, yes.
Yeah, and they're both coming forward with these very specific allegations.
Exactly.
Now, what kind of legal trouble is Depardieu actually in here?
Right. So this is serious stuff.
Yeah,
Because if he is convicted on these charges,
right.
he's looking at a prison sentence of potentially up to 5 years
Wow.
and a fine of
Yeah.
75,000 euros.
That's a huge.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that really underscores the seriousness of all this.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to acknowledge
Yeah.
that Depardieu is very firmly denying any wrongdoing.
Yeah.
His legal team is very clear about that.
Yeah.
They're saying, we're going to prove that these accusations are lies.
Right.
The truth will come out.
Right. They're very much saying, we're going to fight this.
Yeah.
And we believe that he's innocent.
Yeah.
So, it's a he said, she said kind of situation at this point.
Right.
But this is really being seen as a very important trial,
Huge.
potentially a turning point even.
Yeah. And the articles use this term watershed moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's really accurate
Right.
because it's raising a lot of questions about
Yeah.
how France is
Yeah.
dealing with issues of sexual violence.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like the whole world kind of went through this reckoning.
Absolutely.
And France is kind of having to look inward and figure out how to grapple with it too.
Yeah. And how has it changed or not changed?
Exactly. And it's interesting because you've got Depardieu, who's this,
Icon.
right?
He's beloved.
He's had this incredible career.
Decades. He's been at the top.
Decades and so many iconic films he's been a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, even way back in 1991,
Yeah.
he was nominated for an Oscar for Cyrano de Bergerac.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how long
Yeah.
he's been a part of this,
Yeah.
cinematic landscape.
Exactly.
But at the same time,
at the same time.
alongside this huge career, there's also been this narrative of alleged misconduct.
Yeah.
It's like this shadow hanging over him.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
And over 20 women
That's a lot.
have actually come forward,
Yeah.
either publicly or with formal complaints.
Yeah. Over the years, this hasn't just come out of the woodwork. This has been an ongoing thing.
Right. And so that raises the question,
Yeah.
why is this the case that's actually gone to trial?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times with these kinds of situations,
Right.
things don't actually make it to the courtroom.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just there isn't enough evidence
Yeah.
to meet those legal requirements for prosecution.
Right.
And sometimes it's a matter of the statute of limitations,
Oh, right.
which is essentially a legal time limit
Yeah.
for how long you have to initiate proceedings.
Right.
So if that's expired, then it doesn't matter how credible the claims might be.
Right. Even if they're true, you run out of time
You're out of time, yeah.
to actually prosecute.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too because this trial is being seen as such a significant event
Yeah,
that advocacy groups are really paying attention.
absolutely.
There was a demonstration outside the courthouse.
Yeah, a big one.
Yeah, and this feminist historian, Florence Montreno, was there.
Yeah.
And she actually said that Depardieu's court appearance
Yeah.
is a historic moment for women's rights.
And I think she's right.
And I think it's interesting, too, our sources were saying that it was quite a scene out there.
It was a party atmosphere.
Right, there was chanting, there was even techno music playing.
It's interesting how these things become these focal points
Right.
for a whole movement.
Right, it becomes almost symbolic in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she gave this quote to BFM TV, and she said,
Yeah.
times are changing.
Like, this is it.
Hashtag Me Too has swept through.
But this is a turning point.
At last, mentalities are changing.
Yeah, and it really feels like there's a shift
Yeah.
in terms of just people's expectations.
Right, like we're not going to just let things go anymore.
Yeah, there has to be some accountability
Right.
when these sorts of allegations are made.
Right, and this all connects back to a recent case
Yeah.
that was incredibly impactful in France, the case of Giselle Pellico.
Yeah.
And she was the woman who just so bravely insisted on having an open trial
Yeah.
for the men who abused her.
Publicly.
And that was a huge deal.
Massive.
And it seems like that case really helped to bring this issue
Right.
of sexual violence to the forefront of the public conversation.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
it really put it on the map
Right.
and made people pay attention.
Right. And this is particularly significant because
Ah,
the article that we're looking at points out that France has historically had a very
complicated.
ambivalent and even resistant attitude
Yeah.
towards the hashtag Me Too movement
Yeah.
compared to what we saw in, say, Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a really different response.
Right, because you think about Hollywood and it was just like dominoes falling.
Bam, bam, bam.
Huge names.
Careers ending left and right.
It was a reckoning.
And in France, it seems like,
Much slower.
yeah, there was a lot of hesitation and a lot of arguments made about
Yeah.
protecting French values.
Freedom of expression, and
Yeah.
this idea of like French flirtation.
Right.
Like, this is part of our culture.
Right.
What are you trying to do?
Right. And so it really raises this question of like, how do different cultures interpret and respond to this kind of thing? Yeah. And what might be unacceptable in one place
Yeah,
is seen in a different way in another place.
exactly. And it's a really complex thing to sort of
Yeah, it is nuanced.
unpack.
Yeah.
Now it's also important to remember that while this trial is happening
Yeah.
for the 2021 allegations,
Mm-hmm.
Depardieu is also facing another separate investigation
Yes.
into a rape accusation.
That's right.
From 2018 made by the actor Charlotte Arnold.
Yeah.
And in that case, prosecutors actually requested a trial last year,
Back in August. Yeah.
in August 2024.
So we could be seeing more legal action on this.
Right, so this could just be the beginning
Yeah.
of a much larger legal saga.
Absolutely.
Okay, so back to this current trial.
Yeah, let's dive back in.
The prosecutors have laid out the details of these allegations
Yeah.
involving the two incidents.
So in the case of the set dresser,
Okay.
they're saying that he essentially trapped her with his legs
Okay.
before groping her waist and breasts.
And this was all in front of witnesses.
Reportedly, yes.
Okay.
They also say that he used obscene language
Oh, wow.
and that bodyguards had to actually physically pull him away.
This is quite a
disturbing image.
disturbing scene that they're painting.
Yeah.
And then the assistant director's allegations are also
Yeah. Similar.
similar. They also describe groping,
Yeah.
both on set and on the street.
Like in a public setting,
Right.
not just confined to the workplace. It's
Oh.
like this pattern of behavior.
Yeah. And there's this really powerful image that the article describes
Right.
from inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
The two women are sitting side by side.
Yeah.
And it just sort of conveys this sense of solidarity.
Yeah, like they're in this together.
Right. And I think it's important to note that
Yeah.
they're not being named publicly,
Right.
which is often the case.
Yeah. Out of respect for their privacy
Right.
in these kinds of sensitive cases.
Right. So how long is this trial expected to go on for?
So they're saying at least 2 days, but it could potentially go longer,
Right.
depending on how things go.
Right.
How much evidence there is to present.
Right. And this was actually originally scheduled for October of last year,
It was.
but it got postponed
Yeah.
because of Depardieu's health.
Yeah, there were some concerns about that.
Right. And so we know that they're going to deliver a verdict
Eventually.
at some point, but we don't know when.
No date has been set yet.
So when Depardieu arrived at the courthouse,
Yeah, what was the scene?
he was seen grasping his lawyer's shoulder,
Oh, wow.
and he appeared to be calm.
Okay, so not really showing a lot of emotion.
Right. And his lawyer actually disclosed some health information.
Oh, right.
He said that Depardieu has had a quadruple heart bypass.
Oh, wow, that's serious.
And he's also diabetic.
Okay, so he's got some health challenges.
Right. And because of this,
Yeah.
they brought in a court-appointed medical expert
Okay.
who recommended that they have shorter hearing sessions.
Oh, to accommodate his meags.
Right. And take breaks.
Yeah, make sure he's okay.
Yeah. Right. So it sounds like they're being very mindful
Yeah,
of his health situation.
absolutely.
And we know that this trial is going to continue.
Yeah,
We're going to hear from the plaintiffs.
their side of the story,
We might even hear from these additional women who have come forward.
which could be huge.
Right. And eventually there will be a verdict.
Yeah, and who knows what the impact of that will be.
Right. And that really brings us to this final question
Yeah.
for you to think about.
Okay, hit us with it.
Given Depardieu's massive legacy
Yeah.
in French cinema
And in French culture in general.
and you know, all the longstanding attitudes in France
Yeah.
about this issue, how might the outcome of this trial not only impact those involved,
Directly.
right, but actually contribute to a broader societal shift
Yeah.
in terms of norms and accountability?
That's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you think
It does.
about how much power a single trial can have.
To shape the future.
Right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Absolutely.